The morning sun rose over New Denver like any other day. Jake Morrison stood on his office balcony, watching the city wake up below him. Children ran to school while their parents headed to work. The smell of fresh coffee drifted from the cafes. On Main Street, everything seemed perfect in their little corner of the galaxy. Jake had been governor of New Denver for 5 years now. The colony on Kepler 442b had grown from a small outpost to a thriving city of 50,000 people. Families had built homes here. Kids had been born here. This was home for all of them. Governor Morrison, you have a call from Earth, his assistant. Called from inside. Jake walked back into his office and pressed the communication button. President Helen Carter's face appeared on the screen. She looked worried. Jake, we're getting strange reports from the outer rim. Some of our deep space sensors are picking up unknown ships. They're not responding to our calls. How many ships? Jake asked. At least 20, maybe more. They're big, Jake. Bigger than anything we've seen before. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Any idea who they are? No, but they're heading toward your sector. I'm sending Admiral Stone to investigate. Keep your people safe. The call ended. Jake stared at the blank screen for a moment. In 5 years as governor, he had never faced anything like this. New Denver was a peaceful colony. They grew food, studied the planet, and lived quiet lives. They had no enemies. Lisa Hayes sat in the captain's chair of the USS Endeavour, reading reports from her science team. The research vessel had been orbiting Kepler 442b for 3 months, studying the planet's unique ecosystem. Her crew of 30 scientists and officers had become like family to her. Captain, her communications officer called out, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors. Lisa walked over to the sensor station. What do you see? Multiple contacts, approaching fast. They're not broadcasting any identification codes. Lisa frowned. How many? 23 ships, Captain, and they're huge. Much bigger than anything. In our fleet, red alert, Lisa ordered. All hands to battle stations. Send a message to Governor Morrison. Tell him we have unknown contacts approaching the system. On the planet below, Jake was meeting with his security chief when the alarm started blaring. The emergency communication system crackled to life. Governor Morrison, this is Captain Hayes on the USS Endeavour. We have unknown ships entering the system. They're not responding to our communications. I recommend you prepare for possible evacuation. Jake grabbed his radio. Captain Hayes, this is Morrison. Can you identify the ships? Negative, Governor. They're unlike anything in our databases. Wait, ... They're powering up weapons. Governor, get your people to the shelters now. Jake didn't hesitate. He activated the colony-wide emergency system. All citizens of New Denver, this is Governor Morrison. We have a code-red emergency. Please proceed to the nearest emergency shelter immediately. This is not a drill. The streets filled with people running. Parents grabbed their children. Workers left their jobs. Everyone moved toward the underground shelters built throughout the city. Emma Morrison, Jake's 18-year-old daughter, was in her college class when the alarm started. She and her classmates looked at each other in confusion. What's happening? Asked her friend Tom Baker. Before Emma could answer, their teacher, Dr. Ryan Clark, burst into the room. Everyone, we need to get to the shelters right now. There's an emergency. Emma felt scared. She had never seen Dr. Clark look so worried. He was always calm and smart. If he was scared, something was really wrong. In space, Lisa watched the alien. Ships positioned themselves around the planet. They were massive, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered their hulls. Captain, her weapons officer reported, they're charging some kind of energy weapon. The power readings are off the charts. Lisa opened a channel to the alien ships. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the United Earth vessel USS Endeavour. You are approaching a peaceful human colony. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. There was no response. The alien ships continued charging their weapons. Captain, they're targeting the planet, the weapons officer said, his voice shaking. Lisa's blood ran cold. Open a channel to the planet. Governor Morrison, you need to evacuate now. They're going to attack. Jake was in the main shelter under the city hall when Lisa's message came through. Around him, families huddled together. Children cried while their parents tried to comfort them. The shelter was packed with people. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maybe 5 minutes, Lisa replied. I'm going to try to stop them. Jake knew Lisa's research ship had only light weapons. Against 23 massive warships, she had no chance. But she was going to try anyway. Lisa, don't be a hero. Save yourself and your crew. I can't just watch them murder innocent people, Jake. I won't. In the shelter, Emma held her friend's hand. Dr. Clark was trying to keep the students calm, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Around them, families prayed and held each other close. The alien ships finished charging their weapons. Without warning, without any communication, they fired. Beams of pure energy struck the planet's surface. The ground shook violently. The lights in the shelter flickered and went out. People screamed as the entire planet seemed to shake apart. Lisa watched in horror as the alien weapons turned New Denver into a sea of fire. The beautiful city where 50,000 people lived was gone in seconds. The parks, the schools, the homes, everything was destroyed. No, she whispered. No, no, no. The alien ships fired again. And again. They kept firing until nothing remained of the surface, except molten rock and ash. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the alien ships broadcast a message across human space. The voice was cold and mechanical. This is what happens to those who trespass in our domain. Withdraw from all contested systems or face annihilation. This is your only warning. Lisa stared at the burning planet below. 50,000 people were gone. Families, children, dreams, all destroyed in minutes. She felt rage building inside her like she had never felt before. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, I'm picking up life signs from the underground shelters. Some people survived. Lisa didn't hesitate. Prepare the shuttles. We're going down there. As the USS Endeavour descended toward the burning planet, Lisa made a promise to herself and to the dead. This attack would not go unanswered. The aliens had just made the worst mistake in their species' history. They had bombed humans. Now they would learn what happened next. The rescue shuttles from the USS Endeavour landed on the burning surface of Kepler 442b. Lisa Hayes stepped out wearing a protective suit, her heart breaking at what she saw. The city of New Denver was completely gone. Where homes and schools once stood, there was only melted rock and ash. Life signs are coming from Shelter 7, her medical officer reported. It's about 2 miles from here. Lisa and her team moved carefully across the destroyed landscape. The ground was still hot from the alien weapons. Smoke rose from the ruins of what had been a peaceful colony just hours before. When they reached Shelter 7, they found the entrance blocked by fallen debris. Lisa's team worked for 3 hours to clear the way. When they finally broke through, they heard voices calling from inside. Help us! We're trapped! Jake Morrison was the first person they pulled out. His face was covered in dust, and his clothes were torn, but he was alive. Behind him came Emma, Dr. Clark, and hundreds of other survivors. How many? Lisa asked Jake quietly. About 8,000 made it to the deep shelters, Jake said, his voice hollow. The rest ... He couldn't finish the sentence. Lisa felt anger burning in her chest. 42,000 innocent people were dead. Children who would never grow up. Families destroyed forever. All because some alien race decided humans didn't belong in space. The rescue operation took 2 days. Lisa's ship could only carry so many people at once. Each trip to the surface showed them more of the destruction. The aliens had been thorough. They had wiped out every building, every farm, every trace of human life on the planet. Emma Morrison sat in the ship's medical bay, staring at nothing. She had lost her home, her school, most of her friends. Dr. Clark sat beside her, equally shocked. "Why?" Emma asked. "Why did they do this to us? We weren't hurting anyone." Dr. Clark shook his head. "I don't know. But I promise you, Emma, this won't go unanswered." On Earth, President Helen Carter sat in the emergency meeting room. The heads of every major government, military leaders, and scientists filled the room. The news from New Denver had reached Earth 12 hours ago. "Show them the message again," President Carter said. The alien broadcast played on the main screen. The cold, mechanical voice filled the room. "This is what happens to those who trespass in our domain. Withdraw from all contested systems or face annihilation. This is your only warning." Admiral Kevin Stone, head of the Human Space Navy, stood up. "They call themselves the Zephyrians, based on our analysis of their language patterns. Our intelligence suggests they control a large area of space beyond our outer rim colonies." "What do they want?" asked Secretary of Defense Maria Lopez. "Complete human withdrawal from 12 star systems," Admiral Stone replied. "Systems where we have colonies, research stations, and mining operations. They want us to abandon everything and retreat." President Carter looked around the room. Recommendations? Several voices spoke at once. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to evacuate the threatened colonies. A few suggested sending diplomatic missions to try to make peace. President Carter raised her hand for silence. "And what do you think they expect us to do, Admiral Stone?" "They expect us to run," Stone said simply. "Every species they've encountered has surrendered when faced with superior firepower. They think humans will do the same." President Carter stood up. "They're wrong. We don't abandon our people. We don't run from bullies. And we sure as hell don't let anyone murder 42,000 innocent civilians without consequences." The room fell silent. "I want every ship, every soldier, every scientist working on one thing," President Carter continued. "Finding these Zephyrians and making them pay for what they did." Admiral Stone smiled. "Yes, ma'am. Where do we start?" "Recall Colonel Danny Pierce from retirement. I want him to build a special operations force. Get Dr. Amy Foster to start working on weapons that can punch through their shields. And I want to know everything about these aliens, their technology, their weaknesses, everything." Across human space, the news of New Denver spread like wildfire. Every news channel, every social media platform, every communication network carried the story. The images of the destroyed colony and the survivors shocked everyone. But the Zephyrians had miscalculated human nature. Instead of fear, the attack created rage. Instead of retreat, it sparked determination. On Mars, recruitment centers had lines of volunteers stretching for blocks. Young people who had never considered military service suddenly wanted to fight. Parents who had lost children on New Denver demanded justice. Colonel Danny Pierce was fishing on a lake in Montana when Admiral Stone's call came through. Pierce was 60 years old, gray-haired, and had been enjoying his retirement after 30 years of military service. "Danny, we need you back," Stone said. "I'm retired, Kevin. Find someone younger. 42,000 civilians are dead, Danny. Murdered by aliens who think humans are cowards." Pierce was quiet for a long moment. "When do I start?" "Dr. Amy Foster. was working late in her laboratory when the call came from the Pentagon. She was one of the best weapons designers in human space, but she preferred working on peaceful projects. "Dr. Foster, we need weapons that can destroy alien ships," the general explained. "I don't make weapons of war," Amy replied. "They murdered children, Doctor. Innocent children who never hurt anyone." Amy closed her eyes. "Send me everything you have on their technology. I'll see what I can do." On the USS Endeavour, Lisa Hayes was filing her report when she received new orders. She was being promoted to captain of the new battleship USS Retribution, the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. "Your job is simple, Captain Hayes," Admiral Stone explained over the communication link. "Find the Zephyrians and make them regret what they did." Lisa looked at the survivors sleeping in her ship's cargo bay. Jake Morrison was comforting his daughter. Dr. Clark was helping injured civilians. These were good people who had done nothing wrong. "I'll need a crew," Lisa said. "Take whoever you want." Every officer in the fleet is volunteering for this mission. In the Zephyrian Empire, War Prime Zethkar reviewed the reports from the New Denver attack. The operation had been a complete success. The human colony was destroyed, their ships fled, and the survivors were scattered. "The humans will withdraw from the contested systems within one cycle," his advisor predicted. "Like all the other species, they will choose survival over pride." War Prime Zethkar nodded. "Maintain patrols in the border regions. If the humans try to return, destroy them." But the Zephyrians were monitoring human communications, and what they heard confused them. Instead of surrender, they heard anger. Instead of retreat, they heard preparation for war. "War Prime," his intelligence officer reported, "the humans are not behaving as expected. They are mobilizing their military forces." "Impossible," Zethkar replied. "We destroyed their colony. We demonstrated our superior power. They must surrender. The communications we intercept suggest otherwise. They speak of revenge, of justice, of making us pay for our actions." War Prime Zethkar was puzzled. In their 1,000-year history, no species had ever responded to Zephyrian power with defiance. They had always submitted. "Monitor their activities," he ordered. "If they attempt any aggressive action, we will destroy another colony. That will teach them to respect Zephyrian authority." Back on Earth, President Carter signed the declaration that would change everything. The document was simple and direct. The deliberate murder of 42,000 innocent civilians on New Denver is an act of war. The Zephyrian Empire will be held accountable for this crime against humanity. There will be no negotiation, no compromise, no peace until justice is served. The declaration was broadcast across human space and beyond. Every human colony, every ship, every person heard the same message. Humanity would not bow to alien threats. Zephyrians had expected fear. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand: human determination in the face of injustice. They had bombed innocent people. Now they would learn what happened when you made humans angry. 6 months had passed since the destruction of New Denver. The human war machine was now fully awake. Shipyards across human space worked around the clock, building new warships. Training camps processed thousands of volunteers every day. Scientists worked on new weapons and technologies. Captain Tony Lewis stood on the bridge at the stealth ship USS Shadow, watching the Zephyrian border world called Zen 4 through his ship's advanced sensors. He commanded a fleet of 12 stealth ships, the most advanced reconnaissance vessels humanity had ever built. "What do you see down there?" Tony asked his intelligence officer. "It's not what we expected, Captain. The planet has multiple species working on the surface. They're not Zephyrians." Tony studied the images on his screen. Humanoid beings with blue skin worked in massive mining operations. Other creatures that looked like large insects operated heavy machinery. All of them wore metal collars around their necks. Those are slaves, Tony realized. The Zephyrians are using slave labor. Captain, I'm picking up a human life sign, the sensor officer reported. Grid reference 247B. It's weak, but it's definitely human. Tony felt his blood run cold. Humans? Are you sure? Positive, sir. At least 50 human life signs. They're in what looks like a prison camp. Tony opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Stone, this is Captain Lewis. We found something important. The Zephyrians have human prisoners, and they're using multiple species as slaves. The response from Earth was immediate. Rescue our people, Captain, whatever it takes. Commander. Sarah Blake led the rescue mission. Her team of 20 Special Forces soldiers landed on Zen 4 under cover of darkness. They had trained for this mission for months, but nothing could have prepared them for what they found. The prison camp was surrounded by energy barriers and guard towers. Inside, humans from various colonies worked alongside aliens from a dozen different species. All of them looked thin, tired, and defeated. There, Sarah whispered, pointing to a group of humans digging in a mine shaft. Tom Baker, from New Denver. He was in Emma Morrison's class. Sarah's team moved carefully through the camp. The Zephyrian guards were tall, gray-skinned creatures with 4 arms and glowing red eyes. They carried energy weapons and showed no mercy to slaves who worked too slowly. We need to get closer, Sarah told her team. Find out how many prisoners we're dealing with. Staff Sergeant Mike Rogers crawled through the shadows to get a better view. What he saw made him sick. The slaves worked 18-hour shifts with almost no food or water. Those who collapsed from exhaustion were beaten or killed. Commander Blake, Mike whispered into his radio, we've got about 300 prisoners total. 60 humans, the rest are various alien species. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. We're taking them all. All of them? Mike asked, we only planned for human prisoners. I don't care what we planned. We're not leaving anyone in this hell. The rescue began at midnight. Sarah's team disabled the guard towers, while Mike's group cut through the energy barriers. The prisoners couldn't believe what they were seeing. Humans risking their lives to save not just other humans, but alien slaves. An alien with blue skin and large eyes approached Sarah. You ... you came for us too? We came for everyone. Sarah replied. What's your name? I am Kaldar of the Kalari. We have been slaves for 300 years. No one has ever tried to rescue us. Sarah felt anger burning in her chest. 300 years of slavery. How many species had the Zephyrians conquered and enslaved? Well, that ends today, Sarah sighed. Everyone stick together. We're getting out of here. The escape was chaotic, but successful. Sarah's team led 300 prisoners to the evacuation point where Tony's ships waited. The freed slaves couldn't believe they were actually escaping. Tom Baker, the young man from New Denver, grabbed Sarah's arm as they boarded the rescue ship. Commander, my parents. They didn't make it to the shelters. Are they ... Sarah's heart broke. I'm sorry, Tom. They didn't survive the attack. Tom nodded, tears in his eyes. Then I want to fight. I want to make them pay for what they did. Back on Earth, Dr. Ryan Clark was working with the freed alien scientists. The Kalari had advanced knowledge of Zephyrian technology, having been forced to maintain their ships for centuries. Their weakness is here, Kaldar explained, pointing to a diagram of Zephyrian bioneural implants. All Zephyrians have these devices connected to their brains. They use them to communicate and control their ships. Dr. Clark studied the information. If we could disrupt these implants, their ships would become helpless, Kaldar finished. But the virus would need to be delivered directly to their command systems. Dr. Clark smiled. "I think I know someone brave enough to try." Lieutenant Mike Rogers volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. He would infiltrate a Zephyrian command ship and plant the virus that could disable their entire fleet. The mission was insane. Mike would have to sneak aboard an enemy warship, reach their computer core, and plant the virus without being detected. If he was caught, he would face a fate worse than death. "Are you sure about this, Lieutenant?" Admiral Stone asked. "Sir, 42,000 people died at New Denver. If this mission can prevent that from happening again, then it's worth the risk." Mike spent weeks preparing for the mission. He studied Zephyrian technology, learned their language, and practiced moving in zero gravity. Dr. Clark created a special virus that would spread through their bioneural network and disable their implants. The mission launched on a dark night. Mike's stealth pod attached to the hull of a Zephyrian battleship during a routine patrol. He cut through the outer hull using a plasma torch and crawled into the ship's maintenance tunnels. Inside the enemy ship, Mike saw the true horror of the Zephyrian Empire. Slave workers maintained the ship's systems, while Zephyrian officers watched them with electric whips. The aliens treated their slaves like animals, showing no mercy or compassion. Mike reached the computer core after hours of hours, crawling through tight spaces. The central processor was a massive organic computer that pulsed with strange energy. He planted Dr. Clark's virus and began the upload. Suddenly, alarms started blaring. Mike had been detected. "Intruder in the computer core," a mechanical voice announced. "All security teams respond." Mike finished the upload just as Zephyrian soldiers burst into the room. The virus was already spreading through their network, but Mike was trapped. "Human," the lead Zephyrian said in broken English. "You will tell. Use what you have done." Mike smiled. "I've given you a virus that will shut down every implant in your fleet. Your ships are about to become floating junk." The Zephyrian raised his weapon to kill Mike, but suddenly stopped. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. The virus had reached his bioneural implant. All around the ship, Zephyrian crew members were falling unconscious as their implants shut down. The ship's lights flickered and went out. The engines stopped working. Mike used the confusion to escape. He reached his stealth pod and launched back toward human space. Leaving the disabled Zephyrian ship drifting in space, the virus spread to other Zephyrian ships through their communication network. Within hours, an entire fleet was disabled. The Zephyrians were experiencing their first major defeat in centuries. War Prime Zefkar stared at the reports in disbelief. "How is this possible? How did they penetrate our defenses?" "The humans fight differently than any species we have encountered," his advisor explained. "They take risks that seem impossible. They sacrifice themselves for others. They do not surrender when faced with superior force." "Then we will destroy more of their colonies," Zefkar decided. "We will show them the price of defiance." But his advisor shook his head. "War Prime, our fleet is compromised. The virus has spread to 47 ships. We cannot launch major attacks until we develop countermeasures." For the first time in Zephyrian history, they were on the defensive. The humans had turned the tables. The species they expected to surrender in fear had instead struck back with intelligence, courage, and determination. On the USS Retribution, Captain Lisa Hayes received the news of Mike's successful mission. Around her, the crew cheered. The young man from New Denver had just achieved the impossible. "Set course for the Zephyrian border," Lisa ordered. "It's time to show them what happens when humans get angry." The real war was just beginning. The Zephyrians had bombed innocent people, thinking it would make humans afraid. Instead, it had awakened something they couldn't understand: human determination to protect the innocent and punish the guilty. They were about to learn what happened when you made humanity your enemy. The largest fleet in human history moved through space toward the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Kevin Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship USS Vengeance, watching 200 warships follow behind him. Each ship carried weapons designed by Dr. Amy Foster specifically to fight the Zephyrians. Admiral, his communications officer reported, were receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian High Command. "Put it through," Stone ordered. War Prime Zethkar-S image appeared on the screen. The alien leader looked different from the confident conqueror who had destroyed New Denver. His red eyes showed fear for the first time. "Human Admiral, we propose a ceasefire. There has been enough death on both sides." Admiral Stone's face remained cold. 42,000 innocent people died at New Denver. "You call that enough death?" "On both sides?" "We are willing to discuss terms," Zethkar continued. "Perhaps we can reach an agreement that benefits both our species." "The time for talk ended when you murdered children," Stone replied. "You wanted to show us what happens when we enter your territory. Now we're going to show you what happens when you attack humanity." The transmission ended. Stone turned to his fleet commanders. "All ships, prepare for battle. Remember New Denver." "Captain." Lisa Hayes commanded the USS Retribution at the front of the fleet. Her ship was the newest and most powerful vessel humanity had ever built. Dr. Foster's Hellfire missiles were loaded and ready to fire. "Captain, we're detecting Zephyrian ships ahead," her weapons officer reported. "Looks like they're trying to form a defensive line." Lisa studied the tactical display. The Zephyrians had positioned their ships to protect their home system, but their formation was defensive. They were no longer the confident attackers who had destroyed New Denver. "All ships, this is Captain Hayes. Begin the attack. Show them no mercy." The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Dr. Foster's Hellfire missiles punched through Zephyrian shields like they were paper. The aliens' energy weapons, so devastating at New Denver, could barely scratch the new human armor. The Zephyrian command ship, War Prime Zethkar, watched his fleet being destroyed. "How are they penetrating our shields?" "Our weapons are superior." "Sir, they have adapted their technology to counter ours," his tactical officer explained. "Their weapons are specifically designed to defeat our defenses." "This is impossible," Zethkar said. "No species has ever challenged Zephyrian power successfully." "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them. Perhaps we should consider surrender." Zethkar stared at his officer in shock. The word surrender had never been spoken in the Zephyrian language before. They were the conquerors, not the conquered. Meanwhile, Commander Sarah Blake led her Special Forces team to the slave world of Tarn 5. Intelligence reports showed that millions of enslaved beings were forced to work in the planet's factories, building ships and weapons for the Zephyrian Empire. "Remember," Sarah told her team, "we're not just liberating humans. We're freeing everyone." The assault on Tarn 5 was unlike anything the Zephyrians had experienced. Human soldiers fought with a fury that shocked the alien guards. They didn't just defeat the enemy, they liberated every single slave on the planet. Kaldar, the Kalari who had been rescued from Zen 4, stood beside Sarah as they watched the slave camps being destroyed. "In 300 years, no one has ever fought for us like this. Why do humans care about other species?" Sarah looked at the freed slaves, dozens of different species who had suffered under Zephyrian rule. "Because it's the right thing to do. No one should be enslaved. No one should suffer because they're different." The liberation of Tarn 5 sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian Empire. The freed slaves didn't just escape, they joined the human cause. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly had hope for the first time in generations. Dr. Ryan Clark, working with alien scientists, made breakthrough after breakthrough. The Kalari showed him Zephyrian technology that had been hidden for centuries. The insect-like Vexstar shared their knowledge of Zephyrian military tactics. They're not invincible, Dr. Clark explained to President Carter during a secure communication. They've ruled through fear for so long, they've forgotten how to adapt. But humans ... We're natural problem solvers. Lieutenant Mike Rogers now, promoted to major after his successful infiltration mission, led a team of human and alien specialists. They used guerrilla tactics that the rigid Zephyrian military couldn't counter. The Zephyrians fight like a machine, Mike explained to his mixed team of humans and aliens. They follow patterns, rules, established procedures. But we're going to fight like humans, creative, unpredictable, and willing to take risks they can't imagine. Mike's team struck at Zephyrian supply lines, communication centers, and military bases. They appeared where the enemy least expected them and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Zephyrians, used to conventional warfare, had no defense. Against human creativity, on the liberated world of Kef 9, Emma Morrison stood before a crowd of freed slaves. At 19, she had become one of humanity's youngest diplomats, helping to organize the growing rebellion against Zephyrian rule. "We didn't come here to conquer," Emma told the crowd. "We came to free you. Your worlds belong to you, not to U.S., and not to the Zephyrians." The crowd erupted in cheers. Species that had been enemies under Zephyrian rule were working together for the first time in centuries. The former slaves were discovering something the Zephyrians had tried to destroy. HOP Dr. Amy Foster's weapons became legendary throughout the galaxy. Her Hellfire missiles could destroy Zephyrian ships with a single hit. Her plasma cannons burned through their armor like it was made of paper. But her greatest creation was the Freedom Virus, an improved version of Dr. Clark's original program that could shut down entire Zephyrian fleets. The Zephyrians relied on technology to maintain their empire, Dr. Foster explained to a gathering of human and alien scientists. But technology is only as good as the people who use it, and we're better at using it than they are. The war was turning into a rout. Every battle saw Zephyrian forces retreating. Their empire, built over 1,000 years, was crumbling in months. War Prime Zethkar stood in his command center, watching reports of defeat after defeat. His advisors had abandoned him. His fleet was scattered. His empire was falling apart. How did this happen? He asked his remaining aide. They were just one species. We had superior numbers, superior technology, superior experience. Sir, we underestimated them, the aide replied. We thought they would react like every other species we've conquered. But humans are different. They don't just fight for themselves. They fight for others. They don't just want to win. They want justice. Zethkar looked at the tactical display showing human fleets throughout his former empire. What do they want from us? According to their broadcasts, they want you to face trial for war crimes. They want all slaves freed. They want the Zephyrian Empire to end. For the first time in his life, Zethkar felt fear. The humans weren't just winning the war. They were dismantling everything the Zephyrians had built. Admiral Stone's fleet reached the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet was defended by the last of their military forces, but even their home guard was no match for human determination. This is Admiral Stone to all Zephyrian forces, he broadcast. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting, and you will be destroyed. The response came from Zethkar himself. We will never surrender to inferior species. Then you'll die like the murderers you are, Stone replied. The final battle for the Zephyrian homeworld lasted 3 days. Human forces, supported by liberated alien allies, fought through the planet's defenses. The Zephyrians, despite their technology, couldn't match human determination and creativity. On the 3rd day, Major Mike Rogers led a strike team into the Zephyrian capital. His team included humans, Kalari, Vextar, and a dozen other species who had been freed from slavery. "This is for New Denver," Mike said as they breached the final defenses. "This is for every innocent person you murdered." War Prime Zethkar was captured alive, pulled from his command bunker by the very species he had enslaved. For the first time in Zephyrian history, their supreme leader was a prisoner. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, watching the Zephyrian. Flag being low,